Hello, I bring you my family conflict, which is called, My daughter-in-law told me it's just for real family. The photographer asked me to join the final photo. Anyway, you know those situations where you feel like the ground is going to fall out from under you? Well, I experienced one of those last week, and I still can't stop thinking about what happened. My daughter-in-law said it's just for real family. But the photographer asked me to join the final photo anyway. And what happened next? Well, you need to hear this story until the end, because I promise it's not what you're imagining. It all started 3 months ago, when my son Michael called me all excited to tell me that he had proposed to Sarah. I was in the kitchen making breakfast when the phone rang, and his voice on the other end of the line was so full of joy that I felt my heart instantly warm. "Mom, she said yes," he shouted into the phone. And I could hear Sarah laughing in the background. At that moment, I thought I would finally have the daughter I had always dreamed of having. Sarah and Michael had been together for 4 years, and I had always thought they were the perfect couple. She was smart, successful in her marketing career, and had always been polite to me. I can't say we were close, but I respected their space and always tried to be a present mother-in-law without being intrusive. At least, that's what I believed. When they announced that the wedding would be in October, I immediately offered to help. After all, as the mother of the groom, I wanted to be a part of this special moment. Sarah accepted my help with a smile, and we started planning together. Or at least, I thought we were planning together. The first few weeks were wonderful. We went to pick out flowers together, tasted different types of cake, and I even helped pick out the location for the ceremony. Sarah seemed genuinely happy that I was there, and I felt included and useful. We even had some really nice conversations about how wonderful it would be to have Michael happy and settled. But then things started to change in subtle ways. Sarah started making decisions without consulting me, even about things we had discussed together. When I asked about a detail, she would say that she had already worked it out with her mother, Patricia. Initially, I didn't mind too much. After all, she was the bride, and I understood that her mother's opinion was important. Sarah's family was very different from ours. They had more money, that was obvious. Patricia always wore designer clothes, drove a late-model BMW, and talked about her trips to Europe as if they were weekends at the beach. Not that I minded, but I was starting to feel like there was a certain distance being created. The first real sign that something was wrong came during dress selection. Sarah had invited me to accompany her to the boutique, and I was excited for this special moment. When we got there, Patricia was already waiting, along with Sarah's younger sister, Jessica, and 2 cousins I'd never met before. "Oh, Margaret," Patricia said when she saw me, "I'm so glad you came too." The way she said "too" made me feel like I was a last-minute addition, not someone who had been specifically invited. But I swallowed my discomfort and tried to enjoy the moment. During the dress fitting, I sat in a chair in the corner, watching the other women in Sarah's family share their opinions and laugh together. They clearly had a dynamic going on, and I felt like an outsider watching from the sidelines. When Sarah came out in an absolutely stunning dress, I stood up to say something, but Jessica was already talking about how proud their grandmother would be. "My grandmother always said a wedding dress should make a woman feel like a princess," Jessica said, and everyone agreed. I thought about sharing something about my own wedding experience, but the moment passed, and they were already talking about veils and shoes. Sarah picked out her dress, and everyone applauded. I applauded too, but I felt kind of invisible. As we left the boutique, Patricia suggested they go to lunch together to talk about the final details. She didn't invite me, and Sarah didn't say anything about me coming along. I stood on the sidewalk, watching them get into Patricia's car and drive away. That night, Michael called me to ask how the day had been. I told him about the dress, but I didn't want to cause any problems between him and Sarah because of something that might just be my misconception. But the feeling of exclusion only grew stronger over the next few weeks. Sarah started making plans without me, always using the excuse that they were quick things or small meetings. When I tried to offer help, she would say she had everything under control. I was starting to feel like my participation was tolerated, not wanted. The second major incident happened during the bridal shower. I had assumed that I would be one of the organizers, along with Patricia and maybe some of Sarah's friends. I was excited to plan a beautiful party for my future daughter-in-law. But when I brought it up with Sarah, she became somewhat evasive. "Oh, about that," she said. "Actually, Jessica and my cousins are already organizing everything. They know all my tastes and preferences, you know." I tried to hide my disappointment, but it must have been obvious, because she quickly added, "But you'll be there, of course. It'll be beautiful." Being there. As a guest at my own daughter-in-law's party. I smiled and said I was looking forward to attending, but inside I felt more and more like an intruder. The bridal shower was held at Patricia's house, a beautiful mansion with an immaculate garden. When I arrived, there were already about 20 women there, all chatting animatedly. I only knew Sarah and her family, so I felt lost in the midst of so many strangers. Jessica gave a beautiful speech about how special Sarah had always been and how happy the family was with the wedding. She talked about childhood memories, about dreams coming true, about how Michael was perfect for Sarah. I waited my turn to speak, but she didn't call on me. When Sarah opened her presents, I felt proud when she reached mine, a set of copper pots and pans that I had lovingly selected. She smiled and thanked me, but quickly moved on to the next gift. At the end of the party, when they were taking pictures, I walked over to join in the family photos. It was then that I heard Patricia say softly to Jessica, "Let's do one with just our family first." They lined up for a photo, and I stood there, unsure whether to join in or not. Sarah saw me and said, "Margaret, can you take a picture of us?" She handed me her phone. I took the picture, smiling, but inside something broke. I wasn't family. I was the photographer. After that episode, I began to question my place in the whole situation. I talked to my sister Linda about it, and she told me that maybe I was being too sensitive. "Every family has its traditions," she said. "Maybe Sarah's family is more reserved." I wanted to believe that, but the signs kept appearing. Michael seemed oblivious to all of this. When I tried to talk to him about feeling left out, he would say that Sarah was just stressed about the preparations and that I shouldn't take it personally. "She loves you, Mom," he would say. "You'll see. After the wedding, everything will be calmer." I wanted to believe him, but with each event, with each conversation, I felt more and more like an outsider. Sarah remained polite to me, but there was a coldness that I couldn't ignore. It was as if she was playing the role of a loving daughter-in-law, but she didn't really mean it. 2 weeks before the wedding, something happened that left me even more confused. Sarah called me and said she wanted to talk to me about something important. She came over that afternoon, and I was hopeful that we would finally have an honest conversation about our relationship. "Margaret," she began, "I wanted to talk about the wedding. You know I consider you part of the family, right?" I nodded, feeling my heart race. "Well, I wanted to make sure you understood that certain traditions are important to me and my family." She went on to explain how her family had always had certain ways of doing things, how important it was to keep those traditions. I listened, trying to figure out where she was coming from. Then she said, "I hope you understand if some of this seems a little exclusive. It's nothing personal." I asked her what she meant specifically, and she was vague. "Oh, you know, just some family stuff, old traditions." She smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. "I just wanted to make sure you understood." I said I understood, but I really didn't. What traditions were these? What did she consider exclusive? I left that conversation even more confused and worried. The week of the wedding, things got even weirder. Sarah called me to give me details about the day's schedule, and everything seemed normal until she got to the photos. About the photos, she said, "The photographer will take several throughout the day. Some will be with all the guests, others with just the family." I asked if she wanted me to help organize the groups for the photos, and she said, "Actually, everything is already organized. The photographer has a list." A list. I wondered if my name was on that list, but I didn't have the courage to ask. The wedding day arrived, and I woke up with a mix of excitement and anxiety. I had bought a beautiful navy blue dress that Michael said looked perfect on me. I arrived at the church early to help with the last-minute preparations, but when I offered to help, Patricia told me she already had everything under control. The ceremony was beautiful. Seeing my son waiting at the altar, his eyes full of love as Sarah walked in, brought tears of emotion to my eyes. In that moment, all my worries and hurts seemed like nothing. What mattered was that Michael was happy. After the ceremony, everyone went to the reception venue, an elegant club with beautiful gardens. The photographer, a friendly man named David, began to arrange the family photos. I was chatting with a few guests when I heard Sarah calling out, "Immediate family for the first photo." I walked over, naturally assuming it was part of the immediate family. Michael was there, along with Sarah, Patricia, Sarah's father, Robert, Jessica, and Sarah's grandparents. I moved to stand next to Michael, but Sarah stopped me. "Margaret," she said, and her voice had a tone I had never heard before. "This photo is for real family only." Real family. The words hit me like a slap in the face. I stood there, in the middle of the garden, with all those people staring at me. A few guests nearby had clearly heard the comment, and I saw their expressions of discomfort. Michael looked confused. "Sarah, what do you mean?" "My mother is family." "Of course she is family," Sarah said quickly, realizing that she might have said too much. "I just meant that this is a family photo, traditional. You know, parents and siblings will do other photos later." I walked away, feeling my face burn with embarrassment. Real family. So I wasn't real family. I was just what? An attendant? A special guest? I went to the bar and ordered a glass of wine, trying to process what had just happened. My sister Linda found me a few minutes later. "Margaret, are you okay? You look pale." I told her what had happened and she was outraged. "This is ridiculous. You're the groom's mother. What do you mean you're not real family?" "Maybe she's right," I said, tears burning my eyes. "Maybe I'm not really part of her family." Linda hugged me tightly. "You are Michael's mother. That does make you family. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." During dinner, I tried to act normal, but inside I was torn apart. Every time Sarah laughed with her family, every time Patricia made a toast, I felt more and more like an outsider. I started to think about leaving early, making up some excuse. After dinner, it was time for the final photos. The photographer was organizing several different groups: college friends, co-workers, extended family. I was sitting at a table in the corner, watching and wondering if I would be called for a photo. And then something happened that I will never forget. The photographer walked up to me and said, "Excuse me, are you Margaret, the groom's mother?" I nodded and he continued, "I'm organizing a special photo shoot and I'd like you to be in it. It's a photo I always take at weddings. A photo I call the people who really matter." I was confused. But Sarah said the family photos are already taken. David, the photographer, looked at me strangely. "Oh, yes, I've taken several photos of the bride's family, but this one is different. This one is about the people who shaped who the bride and groom are today." He explained that during his years as a wedding photographer, he had developed a special technique. He observed the interactions throughout the event and identified the people who had truly impacted the couple's lives. "It's not about family," he said. "It's about true love and real influence." I was still hesitant. "But if Sarah doesn't want to?" "Actually," he interrupted me, "it was Michael who specifically asked me to include you in this photo. He said your mother is the most important person in his life." My heart filled with warmth. Michael had asked. My son wanted me in the picture. David led me to a more private corner of the garden, where the evening light was beautiful. "Let's do something different," he said. "I'll take a picture of you first. A picture of the mother who raised the groom." I was a little embarrassed, but he was very professional and made me feel at ease. He took several pictures of me, talking about how important it was to document not just the wedding day, but the people who made it possible. "You know," he said as he adjusted the camera, "I've been photographing weddings for 15 years, and one of the saddest things I see is when families split up over territoriality. Marriage should bring people together, not tear them apart." His words touched me deeply. I told him how left out I had felt about the real family comment. He shook his head sadly. "Unfortunately, this is more common than it should be," he said. "Some people see marriage as a battle for control rather than a celebration of love. But let me tell you this. For the past 6 months, I've watched how Michael talks about you. He loves you deeply and respects you immensely. Then he called Michael to join us. My son arrived with a huge smile on his face. Mom, I asked David to take a special picture of us. Are you up for it? We took several pictures together, and I felt happier than I had all day. Michael hugged me tightly and whispered in my ear, "Thank you for being the best mom in the world." When we finished, David said, "Now for the final photo. I'm going to call all the people who have truly shaped the lives of both of you." He started calling people. My sister Linda, who had been like a second mother to Michael. Sarah's high school English teacher who had inspired her career. Michael's grandmother, my mother, who had come especially for the wedding. A few close friends who had been in there for the most important moments in their lives. But he didn't invite Patricia. He didn't invite Jessica. He didn't invite Sarah's parents. Sarah noticed and came closer. "David, you forgot to invite my family." "Actually, I didn't forget," he replied calmly. "This picture is about genuine influence and unconditional love. Based on what I've observed today and the conversations I've had with Michael and you over the past few months, these are the people who truly shaped who you are." Sarah was clearly uncomfortable. "But, my parents." "Your parents are important, of course," David said. "And they're in the family pictures. But this picture is different. This is about the people you'll carry in your hearts forever." I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt vindicated, but another part of me felt bad for Sarah. I didn't want her to feel the way I had. "Sarah," I said, "if you want your parents in the picture, I don't mind." She looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something in her eyes that I'd never seen before. Maybe it was recognition, or maybe it was embarrassment. "No," she said finally. "David's right. This picture is about special people, and you are special to Michael." We took the picture, and it was beautiful. When we were done, Sarah came over to me. "Margaret, can I talk to you for a minute?" We walked to a more private corner of the garden. Sarah looked nervous, fiddling with her veil. "I need to apologize," she said. "I know I haven't been the best daughter-in-law, and the real family comment was awful. I don't know what came over me." I waited, allowing her to continue. "The truth is I've always been intimidated by you," she admitted. "Michael speaks of you with such love and admiration. You raised an incredible son on your own. You are strong, independent. I guess I was afraid that I wasn't good enough, that you wouldn't accept me." I was taken aback. "Sarah, I always wanted to accept you. I always wanted us to be close." "I know," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "And I messed up. I let my own insecurities and the pressure from my family make me into someone I'm not. My mother has very strong opinions about how things should be done, and I let that influence me." She continued, "When David said that you were one of the most important people in Michael's life, I realized how ridiculous I was. Of course you are real family. You are the reason Michael is the wonderful man he is." I felt my eyes fill with tears. "Sarah, thank you for saying that. It means a lot to me." "Can we start over?" she asked. "Can you give me a second chance to be a good daughter-in-law?" I hugged her tightly. "Of course. We both want Michael to be happy, don't we? That makes us a team." We went back to the party, and the rest of the evening was completely different. Sarah introduced me to her friends as my mother-in-law, Margaret, with pride in her voice. She included me in conversations, made me feel truly part of the family. When Michael and Sarah left for their honeymoon, Michael hugged me and said, "Thank you for being patient with Sarah. She was nervous, but I knew you two would get along." 2 weeks later, when they returned from their honeymoon, Sarah called me. "Margaret, I was wondering, would you like to go for coffee with me? Just the two of us. I'd like to get to know you better." We went for coffee, and it was the first of many real conversations we had. Sarah told me about her childhood, about the pressure she felt from her family to be perfect, about how she had married Michael, not just because she loved him, but because he represented a simpler, more authentic life. "Your family is different from mine," she said. "You're more genuine. There's no games, there's no competition, there's just love." I told her about my own experience as a daughter-in-law, about how I had felt judged by Michael's father's family. "I promised myself I would never make another woman feel that way," I said, "but I realized that maybe I had been too passive, waiting for you to come to me instead of making a bigger effort. No, Sarah said. You were perfect. You gave me space, but you were always available. And I was the one being defensive. 6 months after the wedding, Sarah called me with news. Margaret, I have something to tell you. I'm pregnant. I squealed with joy into the phone. I'm going to be a grandmother. Sarah, that's wonderful news. And I was wondering, she continued, would you like to help me decorate the nursery? I'd love to hear your opinion. We spent hours choosing colors, furniture, and decor. Sarah would ask me about what it was like raising Michael, about what kind of grandmother I wanted to be. She made me feel valued and included in a way I had never experienced before. When my grandson was born, Sarah called me from the hospital. Margaret, come meet your grandson. He can't wait to meet Grandma Margaret. I held that baby in my arms and cried. Sarah was beside me, smiling. Thank you for giving me a second chance, she said. Thank you for being a real family. Today, 2 years later, Sarah and I are very close. She sometimes calls me Mom, and I genuinely think of her as a daughter. We laugh about that wedding day, about how things started out badly, but ended well. Photographer David has become a family friend. He sent us all the wedding photos, including that special one. It's framed in my living room, and every time I look at it, I'm reminded of how sometimes people need time to find their place in our lives. Patricia and I have also developed a more cordial relationship. She never explicitly apologized for her behavior during the wedding planning, but she treats me with respect now. I think she realized there was no need for competition. There was room for all of us in Sarah and Michael's lives. The lesson I learned is that sometimes people act out of fear or insecurity, not malice. Sarah wasn't a bad person. She was a scared person trying to navigate complex family situations. When she finally felt safe enough to let her guard down, we discovered we had much more in common than we did differences. Today, when I tell this story to others, I always emphasize the importance of patience and second chances. Yes, it hurt to be excluded. Yes, the real family comment was cruel. But if I had reacted with anger or bitterness, we may never have gotten to the wonderful place we are today. Michael always says he is lucky to have 2 incredible women in his life who love each other. And he is right. Sarah and I have developed a relationship that goes beyond family obligation. It is a genuine friendship based on mutual respect and shared love for Michael and our grandson. The final wedding photo remains one of my favorites. Not only for the vindication it represented in that moment, but for what it symbolizes. Sometimes the most important people in our lives are not the obvious ones, but the ones who love us unconditionally, even when we make mistakes. And David, the photographer, was right. That photo captured the people who truly shaped who Michael and Sarah are. When I look at it today, I see not just a moment of recognition, but the beginning of a new phase in our lives as a family. Real family, I have discovered, is not about blood or traditions or social status. It is about love, support, forgiveness, and growing together. And today, I can proudly say that Sarah and I are indeed a real family. If you like this video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. Leave your opinion in the comments. I'll leave it here, and see you next time.